What I wanted to talk with all of you about today is our zero waste program. This is one of the most built out and well-funded programs that the department has. It's one that we've been working on for over a decade, and wanted to tell you about some of the ways that we've been able to achieve some of our goals on zero waste, as well as some of the behavior change methods that have worked. So a little bit of political background. San Francisco is blessed with a city and county that has a committed mayor and board of supervisors who have been dedicated for a number of years to seeing zero waste as one of their goals. In fact, the zero waste by 2020 goal was mandated by the board of supervisors a number of years ago. Another thing that helped in San Francisco is that California required 50% of landfill diversion by 2000, so that was a motivating force about a decade ago. And California and San Francisco have adopted ambitious climate goals, which also feed into all of our zero waste policies. And our Zero Waste Toolbox, there's a number of different policies and programs that we have implemented to achieve the diversion rates that we see today. First is policy, so I'll touch on that. Our programs, the equipment and facilities, the people, and the technology. So those are all of the elements I'd like to touch on today. So on our zero waste policies, first of all, there was a goal set for San Francisco that we reached a 75% landfill diversion by 2010. We are actually at a 77% diversion rate. We are recycling and composting 77% of our waste in San Francisco. We actually reached that in 2008. As I said, we reached that by 2008. Anticipated that bullet. The adopted goal of zero waste to landfill or incineration by 2020 is what we are working on over the next 9 years. And one of the elements of our programs is we're working to promote highest and best use of our resources. So in addition to promoting recycling and composting, we will be focusing quite a bit on reuse as well as producer responsibility, which I'll talk about in a bit. And one of the most successful policies that we just put in place is our mandatory recycling and composting ordinance. This was passed about a year ago in San Francisco, and although we reached a 77% diversion rate prior to mandatory recycling and composting, it is one of the tools that we now have to use to help us get to zero waste. Now, in terms of our programs, we have a very interesting system in San Francisco where we have a rate structure where we've built in a pay-as-you-throw culture. So the more that you recycle or compost, either as a resident or as a business, the lower your bill is. And so right built into the rate structure, there is a financial incentive for participation, for recycling as well as for composting. And in San Francisco, we have a 3-stream collection program, both for residences and businesses. On the behavior change front, it's very interesting because when you see all of your neighbors putting out their green bin and putting out their blue bin, you know who's participating and you know who's not. So that is also very helpful. That's something that is out in the neighborhoods for everyone to see. We invest quite a bit of resources into outreach and education. We do a lot of mailers, bus ads, really making it easy for people to participate and explaining, here's what goes in your blue bin, here's what goes in your green bin, here's what goes in your black bin. So spending a lot of time on public education, ensuring people know how to use the bins once they're dropped off at their home. And another element that I know Baltimore has talked quite a bit about with the door-to-door outreach, this has been a very successful component for us. We have a program called Environment Now, which is our green jobs training program. Through stimulus funding, we actually hired about 40 workers. It was unemployed parents in San Francisco to get sustainability education, but also to help out with our Department of the Environment programs. We still are funding that program now through the department and employ about 20 people who go door to door on this program and others. But through this outreach, we actually saw in a 3-month period in a neighborhood called the Bayview District, a 50% increase in composting just by going door to door and providing education and passing out the free composting bins. So environmental stewards from the community for every neighborhood. Again, this is something through our Environment Now program that's been really successful. If they see a neighbor come to their door with a free bin and say, are you participating? Do you know what goes in the compost and you know that it's free and you get this bin? We have higher participation rates. So just a couple slides on the system. The recyclables and trash are collected using dual compactors weekly for curbside residents. This is through our company Recology that has set up a very robust infrastructure in San Francisco, which is helping us to reach these goals. So the trucks themselves are dual compactors, which reduces carbon emissions and makes the system more effective. The recycling sorting facility is located at the port. It's at Pier 96, so it makes it much easier for Recology, our recycling company, to sell the commodities that they recycle. There's about 19 different commodities that are sold, some of them locally, but many of them internationally, and they're barged to a number of different countries. There's 6 sorting lines that process over 1,200 tons per day. That's what we call Blue Bin Heaven. That's Recycling Central. And the other aspect of recycling and composting in San Francisco that has been significant, Recology employs currently about 1,000 individuals in this whole system, garbage collection, recycling, and composting. And since the mandatory law got put in place, they added about 120 jobs of folks helping out, particularly on recycling and composting, many of them hired from the local area where the Recology plant is. So the compost, as I said, we did reach the 77% diversion rate before the mandatory ordinance went into place. A lot of people were already recycling. Many of the jumps that we've seen have been in the composting. 600 tons per day are composted, and they're used in Bay Area farms and go back to the vineyards. And as you know, this is a farm-to-fork-to-farm system that we're completing with bringing food scraps back to the vineyards. Disposal rate is lowest in 40 years. I heard the gong, so I'm going to go through a couple of these quickly. So we think and we know that 90% diversion is achievable. Currently, about 1/3 of what still goes to the landfill in San Francisco is recyclable, and about 1/3 is compostable. So if everybody complied with the mandatory composting and recycling ordinance, we would be at 90%. So we're looking at continuing to do a lot of education to ensure compliance. That last 10% is a coupling of dealing with problem materials in the waste stream that either currently are not a sellable commodity or are being produced and put into our waste stream, and that leads to producer responsibility to ensure that manufacturers from the source and from the get-go are producing products that can be recycled or reused. So since this is related to a climate conference, of course, we focus a little bit on our zero waste programs and the benefits that they provide to climate change, or addressing climate change. There's a few points here. So lastly, I just wanted to point out, in reference to the talk this morning, we've been able to make recycling and composting the default for San Francisco. So it's really been about changing the rules and having leadership both through the mayor and the board of supervisor who've embraced that and said it's the norm in San Francisco to recycle and compost, and also making it easy and doing door-to-door outreach in the community has helped as well. So thank you very much for your time.